"I found someone else," he said. She left pregnant, and 3 years later, the Millionaire CEO recognized her at a gala with triplets daughters. "Hi, my beautiful and loyal family. Welcome back to the place where your soul is honored and your heart is celebrated. Mr. Peter's family, may the Almighty cradle every woman in tenderness, wrap her in courage that glows quietly from within, and fill her days with a peace that no storm can disturb. May your silent tears water the seeds of joy, your whispered prayers bloom into miracles, and your heart find rest in the warmth of divine love. You are the light that softens the hardest nights, the gentle strength that holds homes together, and the quiet power that changes the world without being seen. May your path be lined with hope, your spirit always rise, and your life overflow with blessings too beautiful to count. My precious family, your presence is the heartbeat of this home. A like is a spark of love, a comment is a circle of unity. If your heart carries grace like this video, if your spirit walks in faith, comment, "I'm with Mr. Peter." The champagne glass shattered 3 seconds before Imani Walker destroyed a man's engagement, and she timed it perfectly. She stood in the center of the Whitfield Foundation Gala, wearing the black dress Garrett had once said made her devastating, watching him announce his engagement to Senator Carmichael's daughter. His hand rested on the blonde woman's waist, while 500 donors applauded this merger of political dynasty and venture capital empire. Imani was 12 weeks pregnant with triplets. The father was marrying someone else. The glass hit marble, and every conversation stopped. Garrett's eyes found hers, recognition turning to horror. "Congratulations," Imani called out. "When were you planning to mention you got someone pregnant?" The blonde turned sharply, Garrett's face drained. Eleanor Whitfield materialized like a predator scenting blood. "Security," Eleanor said crisply. "I'm 12 weeks pregnant. Triplets. We dated 2 years, Garrett. You told me you loved me 4 months ago. Then you blocked my number and disappeared." Garrett moved toward her, gripping her elbow hard enough to bruise, steering her toward a private corridor. Eleanor and the fiancé followed. The room smelled like cigars and old money. Garrett released her, putting distance between them. "Explain this," Eleanor commanded. "We dated 2 years, Imani said, addressing the blonde. "He stayed at my apartment 4 nights weekly. Said he loved me. 6 weeks ago he ghosted completely. I found out why tonight." "She's lying," Garrett said desperately. "Some scheme. I have 2 years of texts, photos, receipts, your apartment key, the necklace you gave me with Forever G engraved. Want more?" The blonde's diamond ring caught light. "Garrett?" "It wasn't serious," he said carefully. "Casual. She's unstable, showing up here. I'm pregnant with 3 of your children. I need to know if you're being a father or if I'm alone." Eleanor pulled out a checkbook. "Name your price. Abortion, relocation, non-disclosure." The casual cruelty stopped Imani's breath. "I don't want money. I want to know if he'll be a father. Yes or no?" Garrett looked at his mother, at Paige, at his political future. "I can't do this. Paige and I have plans. Her father's positioning me for Congress. A family with you destroys everything." "A family with me specifically," Imani repeated, "not a family in general." "Don't make this about race. You just did. Say it clearly. You're choosing politics over 3 children." "I need someone appropriate," Garrett said. "Someone who fits my world. You were temporary. You had to know that." Eleanor stepped forward. 50,000 for an abortion, 100,000 to disappear. Final offer. "No." Imani's voice was steel. "I'm keeping them. All 3. You'll never see them, never know them. Enjoy your congressional run. I hope it's worth 3 children." She turned toward the exit. "If you're actually pregnant, I want proof," Paige said. "DNA test when they're born. You're marrying a coward who abandons pregnant women for political ambition. That's all you need to know." Imani walked out and made a decision before reaching her car. She was disappearing. New city, new hospital, new identity where Garrett couldn't find her. By Monday, she'd given notice. By Wednesday, she'd broken her lease. By Friday, she was 800 miles away. Garrett called 53 times. She never answered. Changed her number, deleted social media, vanished completely. 3 years later, she'd rebuilt everything. Completed residency, became attending trauma surgeon, raised 3 brilliant daughters who knew nothing about their father except the DNA donor made bad choices. Zara, Amara, and Nia were 3, beautiful, smart, unaware they had a father who'd chosen politics over them. Imani worked brutal hours and poured everything into giving them the childhood they deserved. She never expected to see Garrett again. Then her hospital recruited her for groundbreaking surgery, separating conjoined twins, requiring massive funding. The primary donor was Whitfield Ventures. Imani walked into administration Tuesday afternoon ready to charm donors. 3 people waited: Dr. Helena Russo, a woman in Chanel, and Garrett Whitfield. He looked older, harder, dangerous, wedding ring catching light, expensive suit. His eyes widened seeing her, shock making him step back. "Dr. Walker," Helena said warmly, "meet our primary donors, Garrett Whitfield and his wife Paige." Before Imani could speak, the door burst open and 3 small tornadoes exploded inside. "Mommy!" Zara shouted, running straight to Imani. "Miss Angela said we could bring flowers, but Amara picked all the roses and Nia ate a ladybug." 3 girls in matching overalls and cornrows stopped, noticing adults. Zara's eyes landed on Garrett. "Why does that man have our eyes?" Silence. Absolute. Garrett stared at 3 little girls with his exact face, grey eyes, dimpled chin, stubborn jawline, undeniable resemblance. Paige's expression shifted to horror. Helena's mouth opened wordlessly. "He doesn't," Imani said firmly. "You're imagining things. Let's go." Amara studied Garrett scientifically. "We have the same face, the same dimple. Nobody else has our eyes, Mommy." "Now, Amara." Nia walked directly to Garrett and stared. "Are you our daddy?" Garrett made a sound like being punched. He knelt to Nia's level, face close to hers. The resemblance became impossible to deny. His voice broke. "Imani, what? Out, now!" Imani herded all 3 toward exit. "Miss Angela, take them back." She got them out before Garrett could say more. The damage was complete. When she turned back, Paige was on her phone. Garrett looked sick, Helena calculating liability. "Those are your daughters," Paige said flatly. 3 years old. You told me she was lying. A stalker." "I didn't know," Garrett said hoarsely. "She disappeared. I tried." "Not hard enough." Paige's laugh was sharp. "We're divorced. My lawyers will contact you." She walked out, leaving Garrett staring at Imani desperately. "We need to talk. About our daughters." "No, those girls are mine. You signed away rights when you blocked my calls and married someone appropriate. Stay away." "I have legal rights. I'm their biological father. You can't keep them from me." "Watch me." That night her phone rang. Blocked number. She answered. "I want a DNA test," Garrett said. "And custody arrangements. I've contacted lawyers. This isn't over." "You're right. It's just beginning. But you're going to lose because I'm their mother and I've been their entire world while you played politician. Explain to a judge why you abandoned them." She disconnected and called the best family attorney money could buy. The war was on. Chapter 2. Someone was photographing Imani's daughters at daycare Thursday morning, and when she confronted him, he smiled. The man stood across from the playground, jeans, baseball cap, expensive camera aimed at Zara, Amara, and Nia. He wasn't hiding. He wanted her to know. She crossed the street. "Who hired you?" "Bradford Hayes, attorney for Garrett Whitfield, documenting the children's living situation for custody proceedings. Everything's legal. Public space, no contact. You're surveilling 3-year-olds. Building a case. Your work schedule, daycare hours, single-parent household, compelling evidence about what's best for children." Imani photographed him, his license plate, everything. "Tell Bradford if I see you again, I'm filing harassment charges so fast you'll defend yourself instead of getting paid." She spun toward daycare, hands shaking. Inside, she found the director and delivered explicit instructions about strangers and investigators. Then she called Veronica Liu, the family attorney she'd hired 3 days ago. "They're already building," Veronica said grimly. "Standard tactics. Document everything making you look unfit. Long hours, daycare, not home care, single income. They'll argue children deserve his resources. He abandoned them before birth. It matters. But we need proof he knew and chose to ignore them. Evidence?" Imani thought about 50 deleted voicemails, blocked number, complete erasure. "I destroyed everything, trying to disappear." Then we go aggressive. File first, control narrative, sole custody, child support retroactive to birth, restraining order, smoke out what he knew when. Papers filed Friday morning. By afternoon, Bradford responded with emergency DNA testing and temporary visitation pending custody hearing. DNA test happened Tuesday, sterile facility. Garrett arrived with Bradford and 2 associates, treating it like business. Girls were confused, frightened. Nia cried when the technicians swabbed her cheek. Amara asked why everyone was angry. Zara demanded if the mean man would leave them alone. "He's not mean," Garrett said, voice shaking. "I'm your—" "Don't," Imani interrupted sharply. "Don't tell them who you are until a judge says you have that right." Garrett's hands clenched, but he stayed silent. The technician did double takes at resemblance. Results took 72 hours. Bradford filed additional motions. Work schedule too demanding. Girls deserved private education his client could provide. Single mothers, statistically disadvantaged. "He's married," Imani pointed out. "No 2-parent household either." "Not divorced yet," Veronica said. "Takes months." Bradford argues Eleanor could provide family support. The name sent chills down Imani's spine. "Eleanor tried paying me for an abortion, called my children liabilities." "Then we make sure the judge knows." DNA results arrived. 99.9% probability for all 3. Bradford filed for emergency visitation immediately. Hearings scheduled Monday. 4 days to prepare against unlimited resources. Weekend documenting everything. Schedules, medical records, home photos, daycare statements about consistent involvement. Financial records proving she never asked for money, never sought him out, never used children as leverage. Sunday night at 10, intercom buzzed. Security camera showed Garrett alone, haggard. 5 minutes without lawyers, his voice crackled. "Please." Against instinct, she buzzed him up but left door chained. "Say what you came to say." "I didn't know you'd gone through with it." Worse up close, dark circles, rumpled suit, shaking hands. "You vanished. Hired investigators, but you covered tracks. Thought you'd terminated and moved on. You thought I'd killed our babies because you chose politics. My mother convinced me you'd fabricated pregnancy for money. When you disappeared, confirmed her theory, told myself I'd dodged a bullet. And now? Now I have 3 daughters I've never held." Voice broke. "They're perfect. They have my face. How do I have children I knew nothing about?" "You knew. You believed convenient lies instead of investigating truth. Easier than admitting you'd abandoned your pregnant girlfriend. I want to fix this. Be their father. Give them everything, education, opportunities, real family. They have real family. Me. We don't need guilt money or sudden paternal awakening. DNA proves they're mine. I have legal rights whether you like it. Bradford says excellent case for 50-50 custody. Bradford bills thousands to tell you what you want. Judges care about what's best for children, not guilty fathers. Those girls don't know you. You'd terrify them. Then let me get to know them. Supervised visits, whatever makes you comfortable. Parenting classes, therapy. Just give me a chance." "You had a chance. You threw it away. Get out before I call police." She slammed the door, immediately regretting engaging. Garrett could use her hostility, paint her unreasonable and vindictive. Monday's hearing brutal. Bradford presented Garrett as concerned father deliberately kept from daughters, painted disappearance as malicious, refusal as cruel, household as inadequate. Veronica countered with Gala confrontation, blocked calls, 3 years abandonment, presented voicemails, recovered from old phone, where he'd called Imani a mistake and threatened legal action if she continued harassing him. Judge listened impassively, delivered ruling. Supervised visitation begins immediately, 2 hours weekly, while she considered permanent arrangements. "Your client abandoned these children," she told Bradford. "That weighs heavily. but biological rights can't be ignored. We'll proceed cautiously. Imani left feeling like she'd lost, despite Veronica's assurances. Supervised visitation beat alternating custody Bradford wanted. First visit Saturday. Facility with court-appointed supervisor. Imani brought girls, confused and anxious about the man with our eyes. Garrett arrived with expensive gifts girls ignored, clinging to Imani's legs. Supervisor gently encouraged interaction. Zara refused outright. He's not our father. Fathers live with you. He's a stranger. Garrett looked stabbed. He knelt to her level. I know I'm a stranger now, but I want to change that. Why? You didn't want to know us before. Question so precise, Garrett had no answer. 2 hours crawled. Him trying desperately to engage 3 children, wanting nothing to do with him. Amara hid behind Imani. Nia cried 45 minutes. Zara interrogated like a prosecutor. This is cruel, Garrett said. They're terrified because you've poisoned them. I've never mentioned you. They're terrified because you're a stranger forcing yourself into their lives. That's on you. Supervisor made notes, expressions suggesting agreement. When 2 hours ended, all 3 girls ran to Imani, refused to let go. Garrett watched his daughters flee with something like heartbreak. That night, Veronica called. Bradford filed claiming parental alienation, arguing girls' rejection is artificial, caused by your hostility. They rejected him because he's a stranger who frightens them. I know, but be careful. If Bradford convinces judge you're sabotaging Garrett's relationship, he could argue for custody transfer to repair damage. Rich fathers have won with that strategy. What do? Document everything. Every interaction, visit, time girls express fear. Prove reaction is natural, not coached. Prepare. This gets worse before better. Tuesday morning brought disaster. Hospital administration waiting. We need to discuss the Whitfield donation. If they're threatening to pull funding unless I disappear, that's extortion. They're not pulling it, increasing it. 10 million for pediatric wing. But Garrett requesting you be removed from conjoined twins case due to conflict of interest. Her career weaponized. If she refused, hospital lost funding helping hundreds. If she complied, proved Garrett could control her through financial pressure. I'm not stepping down. This is professional blackmail. Board is divided. We have until Friday. I'm sorry. That evening, watching daughters color, creating elaborate pictures with unself-conscious joy. Zara drew family, mommy and 3 girls, no father anywhere. Why doesn't the mean man like us? Nia asked suddenly. What makes you think he doesn't? He looks at us like we're broken, Amara said quietly, like we did something wrong. The insight broke something in Imani's chest. Girls had internalized his disappointment, frustration, entitled desperation as evidence of their own inadequacy. You didn't do anything wrong. You're perfect. Sometimes adults make mistakes hurting children, but it's not your fault. When does he stop coming? Zara asked. I don't like seeing him. I'm working on that, baby, doing everything to keep you safe. That night, Imani made a decision. She called the investigative journalist who'd broken Garrett's engagement story 3 years ago. If Garrett wanted this public, she'd make it nuclear. I have a story about a venture capitalist who abandoned his pregnant girlfriend for political marriage, then tried buying custody after she built a life without him. Interested? The interview aired Wednesday. By Thursday morning, Garrett's face everywhere with words like abandonment and deadbeat father attached. Business partners distanced themselves. Eleanor released statement disowning his poor judgment. Garrett called 47 times. She answered the last one. You destroyed me, he said hollowly. No, I told the truth. You destroyed yourself. Friday morning, Bradford filed for emergency full custody, arguing Imani's media campaign proved she was unstable and vindictive. Hearing Monday. 3 days to save her daughters from a man viewing them as possessions. She was running out of weapons. Chapter 3. Eleanor Whitfield walked into Imani's hospital Monday morning with a briefcase full of evidence that could destroy everything, and she was smiling. Receptionist called security, but Eleanor showed hospital board credentials, making guards step back. She'd been major donor 20 years. She owned more than donations. She owned favors, loyalty, institutional power bending rules. "Dr. Walker," Eleanor said pleasantly when Imani emerged, "we need to discuss your daughters. I have nothing to say to you." "Then listen." Eleanor opened briefcase. "I've spent 3 weeks investigating your life." Fascinating reading. She laid out documents like trial evidence, financial records showing crushing student debt, work schedules proving she'd left 3-year-olds in daycare 12 hours daily, photos of cramped apartment in neighborhood the investigator labeled marginal at best. "You're a good surgeon," Eleanor continued, "brilliant even, but you're a struggling single mother barely keeping afloat. My grandson deserves better than survival mode. He deserves advantages." "Your grandson?" Imani's laugh was sharp. 3 years ago, you called my children liabilities, offered money to abort them. Now they're your grandson." "Circumstances change. Garrett has no other children. Paige proved infertile. These girls are the only Whitfield heirs." Eleanor's tone suggested discussing investments, not humans. "They deserve private education, cultural opportunities, social connections shaping futures. You're condemning them to mediocrity out of pride. They're 3 and happy. That's not mediocrity. They're 3 and don't know better, but they will. Eventually they'll resent you kept them from their father's resources because of hurt feelings. I'm offering a deal." She pulled out contract, pre-printed and notarized. 50,000 monthly child support, full college funds, summer vacations with Whitfield family, private school tuition. In exchange, Garrett gets standard custody and you drop hostile media campaigns. "You're trying to buy my children." "I'm trying to give them the life they deserve. Look at these numbers. You made $87,000 last year, spent $63,000 on childcare alone. You're drowning financially and it's affecting daughters. I'm offering a life raft." Imani wanted to throw Eleanor out, but numbers were accurate. She was drowning. Every month was calculation of which bills could wait, which emergencies she could handle. She'd given up health insurance to afford pediatrician visits. "My answer is no." Eleanor's smile disappeared. "Then you're a fool. When Garrett wins custody, which he will given resources versus circumstances, you'll have nothing. No monthly support, no relationship with daughters, nothing. This is your one chance negotiating from strength. Get out of my hospital." "This isn't your hospital," Eleanor said coldly. "It's a hospital my family donated millions to over 20 years. Board chair is my golf partner. Head of pediatrics owes his position to my recommendation. Your first year attending with student debt and custody battle. Who has more power here?" She gathered documents deliberately slow, letting threats sink in. "You have until Friday to reconsider. After that, I stop playing nice and start playing to win. And Dr. Walker, I always win." Eleanor walked out, leaving Imani shaking with rage and fear. She immediately called Veronica. "She's threatening institutional pressure," Veronica said grimly. "If hospital board gets involved, they could make your position untenable. Not firing directly, too obvious, but increasing hours, assigning impossible cases, creating conditions forcing you to quit." "Can they do that?" "Rich donors do it constantly, make someone's life miserable until they leave voluntarily. Harder to prove and fight than direct termination." "What do I do?" "Document everything. Every interaction with Eleanor, every work condition change. Prepare for Friday's custody hearing. Bradford will use every weapon Eleanor gave him." Wednesday brought another disaster. Hospital board called Imani for performance review never scheduled before. They presented complaints about her work, all vague, subjective, clearly fabricated. "Several surgical nurses expressed concerns about your focus," board chair said. "They worry your personal life affects professional judgment." "Which nurses? Let me address concerns directly." "Anonymous complaints. We're just flagging this as improvement area." Eleanor's fingerprints. Untraceable complaints creating paper trail of performance issues, justifying reducing hours or denying tenure. Thursday evening, returning home to find someone had broken into apartment. Nothing stolen, but everything photographed. She knew because they'd left it obvious. Furniture slightly moved, drawers not quite closed, camera memory card on kitchen counter that was empty but present. Message clear: we can access your home, your children, your life whenever we want. She called police, but unhelpful. No forced entry signs, nothing stolen. Probably forgot to lock up. Memory card could be hers. Any proof of break-in. She called Veronica, who was horrifyingly unsurprised. Intimidation tactics. They want you scared and paranoid. Don't engage. Install security cameras and document everything. What if they come back when girls are home? That's what they want you thinking. Terror keeping you compliant. Don't let them win psychologically. Friday's custody hearing was nightmare, Imani feared. Bradford presented Eleanor's evidence methodically: financial struggles, long hours, marginal neighborhood, recent performance concerns at work, signs of instability like believing her home was broken into without evidence. He painted Imani as struggling single mother on breakdown edge, unable to provide life Garrett could offer. He presented supervised visits where girls cried and expressed fear, arguing anxiety stemmed from Imani's hostility, not Garrett's strangeness. Then he called Eleanor to stand. I offered Dr. Walker generous support, Eleanor testified with grandmotherly concern. 50,000 monthly, private school, college funds. She refused out of spite. Broke my heart seeing her prioritize hurting my son over daughter's welfare. She tried paying me to abort them 3 years ago, Imani whispered to Veronica. We'll get our chance to cross-examine, Veronica promised. When Veronica stood, questions were surgical. Mrs. Whitfield, when you met Dr. Walker 3 years ago at your son's engagement party, what did you offer her? I don't recall specific conversation. Let me refresh memory. You offered money for abortion and to disappear. 50,000, though amount for killing your grandchildren was negotiable. Bradford objected, but Judge allowed question. Eleanor's composure cracked slightly. That was before I knew children existed. Dr. Walker was making accusations at my son's engagement. I assumed she was lying for money. But you offered money to abort what you thought were lies? I was protecting my family from a gold digger. And now you want custody of children you tried paying someone to abort. Interesting evolution. Veronica's smile sharp. Tell me, Mrs. Whitfield, what changed? Why do these children suddenly have value? They're my only grandchildren. Family is everything. Family is everything. Yet you disowned your son Garrett publicly last week, called his judgment poor in press statement. That's valuing family. I was upset about media attention. You were upset his abandonment of 3 children became public knowledge. You're not here because you love these children. You're here because they're only Whitfield heirs and you need them for your dynasty. Isn't that truth? Eleanor's mask dropped. Those girls have Whitfield blood. They deserve Whitfield advantages. Yes, I want them raised properly, with appropriate education and social connections. Dr. Walker is condemning them to poverty and obscurity because of pride. Dr. Walker is protecting them from family viewing children as assets rather than humans, Veronica countered. Judge called for closing arguments. Bradford emphasized Garrett's resources, genuine desire to know daughters, benefits they'd receive. Veronica emphasized abandonment, Eleanor's toxicity, girls' obvious fear of Garrett. Judge took 30 minutes to deliberate. When she returned, expression was grave. This is one of most troubling cases I've encountered. Mr. Whitfield abandoned these children before birth, then spent 3 years in comfortable ignorance while Dr. Walker struggled alone. Mrs. Whitfield attempted paying for their abortion, then decided they had value once her family needed heirs. This is not loving family seeking reunion. This is wealthy family attempting to acquire children they previously discarded. Imani's heart soared with hope. However, Judge continued, I cannot ignore Mr. Whitfield has participated in supervised visitation and demonstrated genuine effort building relationships. Children's fear is concerning but may diminish with time and consistency. Therefore, I'm ordering continued supervised visitation while monitoring progress. We'll reconvene in 3 months to assess whether increased custody is appropriate. Your Honor, Veronica stood. Mrs. Whitfield has made threats against Dr. Walker's employment and has resources to make her life untenable. I'm issuing restraining order preventing Mrs. Whitfield from contacting Dr. Walker or children directly. All communication goes through attorneys. Any evidence of workplace retaliation or intimidation will result in immediate custody reassessment. But I won't prevent a father from knowing his children based on his mother's toxicity. Mr. Whitfield deserves chance proving he's different than his family. Gavel came down. Imani had won partially. No immediate custody change. Eleanor barred from contact. But Garrett's visitation continued, meaning war wasn't over. Outside courthouse, Eleanor approached, despite restraining order, voice low enough only Imani could hear. You think you won? This is just beginning. I have resources you can't imagine and patience you can't match. Eventually you'll make mistake. And when you do, I'll take those girls and you'll never see them again. That's not threat. That's promise. Security moved Eleanor away, but promise echoed. The war had just escalated. Chapter 4. Imani discovered someone was bribing her daughter's daycare director on Tuesday morning, and that's when she knew Eleanor was playing longer game. Director called Imani into office with uncomfortable expression, closing door carefully. I need to tell you something before it becomes problem. Someone approached me last week offering money for information about your family, schedules, pickups, behavioral observations. Who? Never gave name. Older woman, expensive clothes, very polite. Offered $5,000 for weekly updates. Eleanor. Did you take it? Of course not. But she approached 3 staff members with similar offers. One accepted before I found out and fired her. Woman had photos of your girls, knew their names, your work schedule. She's been watching you. For how long? At least 3 weeks, since custody hearing. Dr. Walker, I'm worried. This surveillance level isn't normal family court behavior. This is someone building case to prove you're unfit. Thank you for telling me. There's more. Director pulled out printed emails. Fired staff member kept records of what she reported. Your daughter's behavior, their interactions, everything. It's all twisted to make them sound traumatized, and you sound neglectful. She noted Zara hit another child during argument, but left out other child hit first. She reported Nia's speech delay, but not that therapist says she's progressing normally. Every observation weaponized. Imani read through reports, seeing daughter's normal childhood struggles reframed as evidence of maternal failure. Zara's fierce independence became aggression issues. Amara's quiet nature became withdrawal and anxiety. Nia's speech therapy became developmental delays from inadequate attention. Eleanor is building narrative, Imani said quietly, week by week, incident by incident, until she has enough evidence petitioning for emergency custody. What are you going to do? Fight back? She called Veronica immediately, sending photos of emails and director's statement. Eleanor is bribing witnesses and manufacturing evidence. Can we use this? If we can prove she's behind it. But rich people use intermediaries for exactly this reason. Plausible deniability. Woman who approached daycare didn't identify herself. Any lawyer worth their fee will argue Eleanor is being framed or someone acted without her knowledge. So she can do whatever she wants. And we can't stop her? We document everything and wait for her to get sloppy. Rich people always get sloppy because they're so used to winning. Eventually, Eleanor will overreach and give us something concrete. But Imani couldn't afford waiting for Eleanor to make mistake. Daughters were being watched, documented, judged every moment. She enrolled them in different daycare across town with strict privacy policies and background checks, installed security cameras in apartment, varied routes to work and girls' schedules, became hypervigilant about everything, constantly watching for investigators or bribes or manipulation. The stress was destroying her. She snapped at colleagues, Made small errors in surgery she'd never made before. Couldn't sleep more than 3 hours without jolting awake, convinced someone was in apartment. Dr. Helena Russo pulled her aside after particularly rough surgery. "Imani, you're exhausted. You nearly nicked artery today. That's not like you." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're being hunted by wealthy family with unlimited resources, and it's affecting your work. I'm giving you week of leave." "I can't afford leave. Eleanor is watching for any sign of instability." Being too exhausted to function safely is instability. Take week, rest. Spend time with girls without panicking about surveillance. That's an order. Forced leave was simultaneously relief and terror. Relief because Imani was running on fumes and adrenaline. Terror because Eleanor would spin medical leave into mental health crisis in court filings. She spent weeks sleeping when girls napped, taking them to parks, trying to reclaim normalcy. But normalcy felt impossible when every stranger could be investigator, every casual conversation could be recorded, every moment potentially weaponized. Thursday afternoon, man approached Imani at park while girls played. Well-dressed, mid-40s, carrying himself with confidence of someone accustomed to difficult conversations. "Dr. Walker, I'm Julian Cross, new chief of surgery at your hospital. Helena told me about your situation. Can we talk?" "If this is about my leave, I'll be back Monday." "It's not about your leave. It's about Garrett Whitfield." Julian's expression was grim. "He was my roommate in college. I know exactly what kind of person he is, and I'm willing to testify about it in court." Imani studied this stranger, offering to wade into her nightmare. "Why would you do that?" "Because I watched Garrett destroy 3 different women during college with same pattern, pursue them intensely, promise everything, discard them when they became inconvenient. One of them tried to die afterward. When Helena told me you're fighting him for custody, I knew I had to help. Testifying against him could destroy your career. He's donating millions to your hospital. Some things matter more than career politics. Your daughters matter more." For first time in weeks, Imani felt something other than terror. She felt hope. Julian became unexpected ally, providing statements about Garrett's character, his pattern of manipulation, his family's toxicity. He confirmed Eleanor's reputation as someone who destroyed anyone threatening her family's image. He knew Bradford Hayes from previous cases and called him the best lawyer money can buy for terrible people. But more than testimony, Julian offered friendship. He showed up at park when Imani was there with girls, casually playing with them without pressure or expectation. He brought coffee during hospital shifts and listened when Imani needed to vent about surveillance and legal battles. Zara took to him immediately, demanding he push her on swings higher. Amara showed him drawings shyly. Nia held his hand spontaneously during walk, first time she'd voluntarily touched adult male besides pediatrician. "You're good with them," Imani observed one Saturday afternoon. "I like kids who haven't learned to be fake yet. 3-year-olds are brutally honest about whether they like you." "They like you?" "Good." His smile was warm. "I like them too. They're extraordinary, Imani. You've done an amazing job raising them alone." Compliment hit harder than it should, bringing tears she'd been suppressing for weeks. Nobody had told her she was doing a good job in so long. Everyone, Eleanor, Bradford, even some colleagues, had been cataloguing her failures, her struggles, her inadequacies. "Sorry," she said, wiping eyes roughly. "I'm a mess. You're surviving war against people with unlimited resources. Being mess is appropriate." That evening, after Julian left and girls were asleep, Imani received envelope delivered to apartment door. No return address, just her name in elegant script. Inside were photos, dozens, her and Julian at park, at hospital, walking with girls. Photos were time-stamped and annotated with captions making innocent moments look suspicious. Dr. Walker's new boyfriend shows concerning immediate attachment to minor children. Unvetted male given unsupervised access to vulnerable girls. Mother prioritizes new relationship over children's safety. Message was clear. Eleanor was watching, documenting, building case that Imani was so desperate for male attention she was endangering daughters. Imani called Veronica immediately. sending photos of photos. "This is actually good," Veronica said. "How is this possibly good?" "Because Eleanor just gave us proof she's surveilling you in violation of restraining order. Order said no direct contact and no intimidation. These photos delivered to your home are both. We can file for contempt of court." "Will it work?" "It'll demonstrate pattern of harassment. Combined with daycare bribes and workplace intimidation, we can argue Eleanor is waging systematic campaign to destroy you. That reflects badly on Garrett's custody petition." They filed Monday morning. Contempt hearing scheduled Friday. Eleanor arrived with own team of lawyers looking untroubled. "I have no idea what Dr. Walker is talking about," Eleanor testified smoothly. "I've had no contact with her since restraining order was issued. If someone is photographing her, it's not at my direction." "Then how do you explain surveillance photos delivered to her apartment?" Veronica demanded. "I can't explain something I didn't do. Perhaps Dr. Walker has other enemies. Perhaps she's fabricating evidence to discredit my family. I wouldn't put it past someone who's already demonstrated unstable behavior." Judge looked skeptical, but without proof connecting Eleanor directly to photos, couldn't rule definitively. "I'm extending restraining order and adding surveillance to prohibited activities. Mrs. Whitfield, if any more evidence emerges of you or anyone acting on your behalf, attempting to intimidate Dr. Walker, you'll face serious consequences, including potential impact on your son's custody case." Eleanor's smile was serene. "I understand, Your Honor, though I maintain I've done nothing wrong." Outside courthouse, Eleanor walked past Imani close enough to whisper without anyone else hearing, "You have no idea how many people work for me, how many ways I can destroy you without ever touching you directly. This is chess, Dr. Walker, and you're playing checkers." She walked away, leaving behind promise of more attacks to come. That night, Imani sat with Julian after girls were asleep, telling him about Eleanor's whispered threat. "She's trying to break you psychologically," Julian said. "Make you so paranoid and exhausted you make actual mistakes she can exploit." "It's working. I'm constantly watching over shoulder, jumping at shadows, not sleeping, not eating properly. If this continues, I will break. Then we need to change strategies, stop playing defense and start playing offense." "How?" "We find Eleanor's weakness and exploit it. Everyone has vulnerabilities. Even billionaire matriarchs have something they want to hide. We find it and use it. That's not legal. It's not illegal to investigate someone who's investigating you. We're just leveling playing field." Julian hired private investigator to look into Eleanor's business dealings, her charitable foundation, her social connections. If she'd spent decades covering up family secrets and destroying enemies, evidence would exist somewhere. 2 weeks later, investigator delivered folder that would change everything. "Your instinct was right," he said. "Eleanor Whitfield has pattern. This isn't first time she's tried taking children from mother she deemed unfit. It's actually fourth. And one of those mothers committed suicide after losing custody. I have court records, sealed files, everything." Imani read through documents with growing horror. Eleanor had systematically destroyed 4 different women over 20 years, all mothers of Whitfield children, all deemed inappropriate for family. She'd used same tactics: surveillance, intimidation, bribed witnesses, manufactured evidence to win custody for her sons. One woman had been found dead 3 months after losing children. Official ruling was suicide, but investigator had found evidence suggesting Eleanor paid off coroner and investigating officers. "This is enough to destroy her," Imani said quietly. "It's enough to protect yourself," Julian corrected. "If you release this information, Eleanor can't touch you without looking like serial child stealer. It's mutually assured destruction. Or it backs her into corner and makes her more dangerous. That's risk. But right now, she's winning because you're only defending. This gives you leverage." Imani stared at documents, understanding releasing this information would detonate bomb through Eleanor's carefully constructed reputation. It would probably end custody battle permanently. It would also make her enemy for life. But daughter's safety mattered more. She called Veronica. "I have evidence Eleanor has done this before. Multiple times. One of mother's died afterward. How do we use this?" Veronica was silent, long moment. You're sure you want to do this? Once you fire this weapon, there's no taking it back. Eleanor will destroy you if she survives scandal. She's trying to destroy me now. At least this way, I fight back. Then we release it strategically. Not to media, that makes you look vindictive. We present it to judge in sealed filing, arguing it's relevant to custody determination because it demonstrates Eleanor's pattern of viewing mothers as obstacles to acquiring children. Let judge decide what to do with it. Sealed filing submitted Wednesday. By Thursday, custody hearing scheduled for next month was suddenly moved up to Friday. Emergency session, all parties required. Imani knew Eleanor had discovered what was in sealed file, and she knew Friday's hearing would be war. She just didn't know Eleanor would bring nuclear weapons. Chapter 5. Garrett showed up at Imani's apartment with police Friday morning before custody hearing, and accusation he made would destroy everything. Knock came at 6 a.m. while Imani was making breakfast. She opened door to find two officers, Garrett behind them looking grim, Bradford Hayes with document folder. Dr. Walker, senior officer said, we need to ask questions about allegation of parental alienation and child abuse. World tilted. What? Bradford stepped forward. My client has evidence you've been coaching children to fear him, deliberately sabotaging his relationship with daughters, and physically disciplining them in ways constituting abuse. We're here to investigate. That's insane. I've never coached them, and I certainly haven't abused them. Then you won't mind us speaking with children, officer said. Absolutely not. Not without my attorney present, and certainly not with him here. She pointed at Garrett. This is retaliation for filing evidence about his mother's history. Dr. Walker, we can do this easy or hard, officer said. Easy is you cooperate voluntarily. Hard is we get Child Protective Services involved and remove children pending investigation. Your choice. Threat was clear. Comply or lose daughters immediately. I'm calling my lawyer. Imani pulled out phone with shaking hands, hitting Veronica's emergency number. Don't speak to my children until she's here. Veronica arrived 20 minutes later, furious and armed with counter-arguments. This is harassment. My client filed evidence yesterday about Eleanor Whitfield's pattern of targeting mothers, and 12 hours later you're investigating abuse allegations. Timing is suspicious at best. Allegations are from mandated reporter at children's former daycare, Bradford said. Someone who observed concerning behavior before Dr. Walker abruptly moved daughters to different facility. Fired employee. One who'd been bribed. Eleanor had convinced her to file false abuse report. Name the reporter, Veronica demanded. That's confidential during investigation. Then let's talk about what coincidence it is this report emerged day after sealed court documents revealed Eleanor Whitfield has done exactly this to 4 other mothers. This isn't about child welfare. This is about destroying my client before today's custody hearing. Officers looked uncomfortable, clearly recognizing political landmine. Senior officer spoke carefully. Ma'am, we have to investigate all abuse allegations regardless of timing. If you and your attorney are present, we can speak with children briefly and clear this up quickly. Imani had no choice. She woke girls, confused and frightened by police in their home, and brought them into living room. Zara immediately sensed danger and positioned herself protectively in front of sisters. What's happening, Mommy? Amara asked, voice small. These police officers need to ask questions, baby. Just tell truth, okay? Officer knelt to their level, voice gentle. Hi, girls. I'm Officer Williams. I just want to make sure you're safe and happy. Can you tell me how your mommy treats you? She's nice, Nia said immediately. She makes us breakfast and reads us stories. Does she ever hurt you, hit you or yell at you? She yells when we don't listen, Zara said with 3-year-old honesty. But she doesn't hit us. Hitting is bad. Has she ever told you to be scared of anyone? We're scared of him, Amara said, pointing at Garrett. He wants to take us away from Mommy. Did your mommy tell you that? No. He said it at a place with toys. He said we'd live with him and see Mommy sometimes. Officer Williams looked at Garrett sharply. Is that true? I was trying to explain shared custody in age-appropriate terms, Garrett said defensively. To 3-year-olds who barely know you? That sounds like you were one causing fear, not Dr. Walker. Bradford intervened quickly. Mandated reporter observed concerning bruises on Zara's arms consistent with grab marks. She also noted all three children display anxiety and behavioral issues, suggesting unstable home environment. Zara got those bruises falling off playground equipment, Imani said. I have photos from daycare incident report documenting exactly what happened. She pulled up phone, showing time-stamped photos of Zara's fall and daycare director's incident report describing accident. Bruises were clearly from impact, not grabbing. Officer Williams reviewed photos, expression suggesting he was done with this investigation. Dr. Walker, your children appear healthy, happy, well cared for. Allegations don't match what I'm seeing. We'll file reports stating no evidence of abuse or neglect found. Thank you, Imani said, relief flooding through her. This isn't over, Bradford said. We're filing our own petition with CPS for full investigation. File whatever you want, Veronica shot back. We're filing harassment charges against your client for using law enforcement to intimidate mother hours before custody hearing. Judge is going to love hearing about this. Officers left, clearly unhappy about being used as pawns. Garrett lingered at door, expression conflicted. This wasn't my idea, he said quietly. My mother arranged. I don't care, Imani interrupted. You stood there while police accused me of abusing our daughters. You let Eleanor weaponize law enforcement against mother of your children. Whatever relationship you thought you could build with them, you just destroyed it. I'm trying to protect them from mother who's keeping them from their father. I'm keeping them from man who traumatizes them every visitation and grandmother who bribes witnesses to file false abuse reports. That's not protection, Garrett. That's survival. She closed door and immediately broke down, sobbing in kitchen while daughters watched with frightened eyes. Zara climbed into her lap, small arms wrapping around neck. Don't cry, Mommy. Police said you're good. I know, baby. I'm just tired. We don't like him, Amara said firmly, joining embrace. He's mean. Naya added herself to comfort pile, and Imani held all three while trying to breathe through realization of how close she'd come to losing them. If officers had been less reasonable, if Garrett's timing had been better, if she hadn't had photos documenting Zara's injury, CPS could have removed girls pending investigation. Eleanor had almost won. Custody hearing that afternoon was most brutal yet. Bradford presented abuse allegations immediately, arguing they demonstrated Imani's instability even though investigation cleared her. Fact that allegations were made by mandated reporter is concerning regardless of outcome, Bradford argued. It suggests Dr. Walker's household is chaotic enough professionals feel compelled to intervene. Mandated reporter was fired for accepting bribes to spy on my client's family, Veronica countered. She filed false allegations in retaliation and at Eleanor Whitfield's direction. This is exactly pattern of harassment documented in sealed filing. Judge looked at Eleanor with open skepticism. Mrs. Whitfield, did you have any involvement encouraging abuse allegations against Dr. Walker? Absolutely not, Your Honor. I'm horrified by accusation. If someone made report, it was because they genuinely had concerns. Someone you'd previously paid for information about children, Judge said flatly. Someone Dr. Walker fired from employment. Timing is remarkably convenient. Coincidences happen, Eleanor said smoothly. So do patterns, Judge opened sealed file. I've reviewed evidence Dr. Walker submitted regarding your history with other mothers in custody disputes. 4 cases over 20 years where you systematically targeted women you deemed inappropriate for your family. In each case, you used remarkably similar tactics. Surveillance, bribed witnesses, allegations of abuse or instability, institutional pressure. Ancient history, Eleanor dismissed. Different circumstances. One of those mothers died shortly after losing custody, Judge continued, voice hard. And you were primary financial benefactor for investigation that ruled it suicide. That's not ancient history, that's pattern of behavior, suggesting you view mothers as obstacles to acquiring children rather than as human beings with rights. Bradford tried to object, but Judge cut him off. I'm not finished. Mr. Whitfield, you've participated in supervised visitations for 3 months now. Every report from supervisor indicates your daughters are frightened of you, cry during visits, express relief when returning to their mother. You've shown no understanding of their emotional needs and seem more interested in proving you have rights than in building genuine relationships. I'm trying, Garrett said desperately. They just need more time. They need safety, Judge interrupted, and you're not providing it. Your mother's interference, these harassment tactics, abuse allegations filed this morning. All of this creates environment of terror for 3-year-old children who should be playing and learning, not fearing strange adults will take them from their mother. Imani's heart pounded with hope. Therefore, I'm issuing following orders. Mr. Whitfield's visitation is suspended indefinitely. Mrs. Whitfield is barred from any contact with Dr. Walker or children, directly or through intermediaries, until children reach age 18. Any violation of this order results in immediate criminal prosecution. Dr. Walker retains sole legal and physical custody. Your Honor, Bradford stood. My client has biological rights. Your client abandoned his children before birth and only sought custody when convenient. His mother has demonstrated pattern of destroying mothers through intimidation and false allegations. I will not allow these children to become pawns in Whitfield family's dysfunction. My ruling stands. Gavel came down. Imani had won completely. Outside courthouse, Eleanor approached despite strengthened restraining order, voice so low only Imani could hear. You think this is over? I have decades of experience destroying women like you. Judges can be appealed. Orders can be reversed. I will get those children eventually, and when I do, you'll never see them again. Run while you can, because I'm coming for you. Security moved Eleanor away, but promise echoed for days afterward. She'd won battle, but Eleanor's war was far from finished, and Imani was running out of places to run. Chapter 6. Imani discovered her daughters were missing Thursday morning, and security footage showed exactly who'd taken them. She'd dropped them at new daycare at 7:30 like always, watched them run inside chattering about field trip to aquarium, drove to hospital for morning rounds. At 9:15, daycare director called screaming, "They're gone. Someone picked them up with authorization paperwork. Dr. Walker, your daughters are gone." Imani's world collapsed into single word. Eleanor. She was at daycare in 12 minutes, breaking every traffic law. Director showed her paperwork. Perfectly forged court documents stating custody had been transferred to Garrett Whitfield pending appeal, signed by judge who didn't exist, notarized by someone probably paid thousands to fake credentials. Man who picked them up looked official, director said, crying. He had court documents, knew their names, described them perfectly. We followed every protocol. What did he look like? 50s, professional. Said he was court-appointed transport. Had photos of girls, their birth dates, everything. I'm so sorry. Imani was already calling 911, hands shaking so violently she could barely hold phone. My daughters were kidnapped from daycare, 3-year-olds, taken by someone with forged custody documents. I need every officer looking for them right now. Police arrived within minutes. Amber Alert issued immediately. Imani provided photos, descriptions, everything. Security footage showed man in suit collecting daughters, who'd gone with him confused but compliant because adult had official paperwork. Veronica arrived at daycare, already making calls. This is custodial interference and kidnapping. Garrett violated custody order. Eleanor orchestrated it. We're filing emergency motions and criminal complaints. I don't care about filing anything. I care about finding my daughters before Eleanor disappears with them. Julian showed up 20 minutes later, having left surgery mid-procedure when Helena told him. Where would they take them? Eleanor's estate, Imani said immediately. She has security, lawyers, resources. She's fortifying position before police can respond. Then let's go get them. They drove to Whitfield Estate with 2 police cars following, Imani's entire body vibrating with fear and fury. Gate was closed, security posted, cameras tracking arrival. Eleanor waited on front steps like general preparing for siege, wearing pearls and power. Garrett stood beside her looking conflicted, and all three of Imani's daughters were visible through front window, crying. "You kidnapped my children," Imani shouted from gate. "Give them back, or I'll have every officer here arrest you." "Those children are Whitfield blood," Eleanor announced, as if statement trumped legal reality. "They belong with family who can provide proper advantages. Judge gave me sole custody. You violated court order. We've filed appeal. These documents authorize temporary custody transfer pending appeal hearing." Eleanor held up more forged paperwork. Professionally done, it looked legitimate. "Those are fake," Veronica said immediately. "No judge signed those orders. This is kidnapping." Police officers approached gate, hands near weapons. "Ma'am, we need you to release children to legal guardian immediately." "I'm their legal guardian now," Eleanor said calmly. "These court documents supersede previous ruling. You can verify with family court." "We've verified," senior officer said. "Those documents are fraudulent. Release children now, or you'll be arrested." Eleanor smiled serenely. "Officer, do you know who I am? My family donated millions to this city. Mayor is personal friend. Police chief owes his position to my political support. Are you going to arrest me based on mother's hysterical claims?" "I'm going to arrest you for kidnapping 3 children in violation of court order," officer said flatly. "But you're right about one thing. You have powerful connections, which means my arrest might not stick. So I'm calling this in to every news outlet in the city. Let's see how your political friends feel when cameras show up documenting you holding kidnapped children." He pulled out his radio, and Imani heard him calling dispatch, requesting media presence for high-profile custodial interference case involving prominent family. Eleanor's composure cracked for the first time. "You wouldn't dare." "Try me," officer said. "I've got 3 terrified little girls visible through that window and a grandmother who thinks money makes her above the law. The press is going to love this story." Within minutes, news vans started arriving. Cameras pointed at the estate, at Eleanor standing on the steps, at the crying children visible through windows. Eleanor's carefully controlled image was disintegrating in real time. Garrett finally spoke, voice cracking. "Mother, we can't do this. Not like this. Not with cameras everywhere. We've already lost." "This is necessary," Eleanor snapped. "Those girls deserve better. By traumatizing them." Garrett gestured toward window where Zara was screaming for Imani. Amara had hands over ears. Nia was sobbing. "Look at them. They're terrified, and now it's all being filmed. Mother, you've destroyed us. If you release those children, you'll never have another chance. Choose. Your mother and your family's legacy, or that woman." "I choose not being a monster on camera," Garrett said, pulling away. "We're giving them back." He walked into house despite Eleanor's shouted protests. Through window, Imani watched him kneel to girls' level, saying something that made Zara stop screaming. Then he opened front door, and all 3 girls ran down steps toward Imani. "Mommy!" They crashed into her with enough force to knock her down, all crying and talking at once. "They said we lived here now and you said it was okay, but we didn't believe them, and Lady yelled at us when we cried and we want to go home." "I've got you," Imani said, holding all 3 against chest. "You're safe. Nobody's taking you anywhere. I promise." Police moved to arrest Eleanor, but she stepped back with supreme confidence even as cameras filmed everything. "You're making a mistake. My lawyers will have me out within an hour." "Maybe," officer said. "But these cameras just filmed you holding kidnapped children while claiming to be their legal guardian with forged documents. That's not going away regardless of your lawyers." They cuffed Eleanor despite protests, and every news outlet captured the image of a billionaire philanthropist being arrested for kidnapping her own grandchildren. Garrett watched his mother being led away, then turned to Imani. "I'm sorry. I didn't know she'd planned this. When I realized—" "You participated," Imani interrupted coldly. "You stood on those steps while my daughters cried. You only returned them when cameras showed up. That's not redemption, Garrett. That's damage control." She gathered daughters and walked to car, Julian helping buckle 3 shaking children into seats. But Imani knew this wasn't over. Eleanor had been arrested before. She always found a way out. This time would be different. Chapter 7. Eleanor Whitfield was released on bail within 3 hours, and that's when Imani understood money really could buy anything, except this time she was ready. The call came from Veronica Friday evening. Eleanor posted $5 million bail. She's out pending trial, but the judge imposed strict conditions, electronic monitoring, travel restrictions, and absolute prohibition on any contact with you or the girls. She'll violate it, Imani said. She doesn't believe rules apply to her. Then we'll be ready to prove it. But Imani, there's something you need to understand. Eleanor has resources to drag this trial out for years. Her legal team is already filing motions to suppress evidence, challenge the kidnapping charges, claim she genuinely believed the forged documents were real. With her connections and money, she might actually win or get charges reduced to misdemeanors. So she kidnaps my children and gets away with it? Not if we're smart, but we need to change tactics. Eleanor is used to playing by rules she controls. We need to make her play by ours. Over the weekend, Veronica and Julian developed a strategy that was risky but potentially devastating. They'd use Eleanor's own weapons against her: media, public opinion, and the court of reputation that even billionaires couldn't completely control. Eleanor has spent decades building an image as philanthropist and society matriarch, Julian explained Monday morning. That image is her power. The kidnapping arrest damaged it, but her PR team is already working to spin the narrative. Confused grandmother, forged documents she trusted, overzealous police. We need to destroy that narrative completely. How? Imani asked. By going public with everything, not just the kidnapping, but the pattern, the 4 other mothers she targeted, the one who died, the systematic destruction of any woman she deemed unworthy of the Whitfield name. We make her so toxic that her political connections become liabilities rather than assets. Won't that make her more dangerous? Imani worried. It'll make her desperate, Veronica corrected. And desperate people make mistakes. Plus, once the full pattern is public, any judge who favors her looks complicit. We're protecting you through exposure. The investigative piece ran in a major newspaper Thursday morning. The Whitfield Method: how one family destroyed 4 mothers and kept their children. The journalist had interviewed the investigator, reviewed the sealed court files, even tracked down family members of the mother who died. The article was devastating. Meticulous documentation of Eleanor's 20-year pattern of targeting inappropriate women who'd had children with Whitfield men, using identical tactics to destroy them and claim the children for the family dynasty. By Thursday afternoon, 3 more women had come forward with their own stories of Eleanor's interference in their relationships with Whitfield family members. None had children involved, but all described the same systematic destruction: surveillance, manufactured scandals, career sabotage, financial ruin. Eleanor's carefully constructed image collapsed overnight. Charity boards demanded her resignation. Political allies issued statements distancing themselves. The mayor, who'd been her golf partner, suddenly couldn't recall their friendship. Even the police chief publicly stated he'd never received any pressure regarding her arrest. But Eleanor's response was exactly what Imani feared. She doubled down. Friday evening, a brick crashed through Imani's apartment window with a note attached: "You destroyed my life. Now I destroy yours." Saturday morning, Imani's car tires were slashed in the hospital parking garage. Security cameras had conveniently malfunctioned. Sunday afternoon, someone spray-painted "Child Stealer" across her apartment building door. "She's spiraling," Veronica said when Imani reported each incident. "This is good for our case. She's violating bail conditions with harassment. But it's also dangerous. Cornered predators are the most violent." "Should I take the girls somewhere safe?" "Where?" "Eleanor has resources to find you anywhere. Better to stay here where you have security cameras, witnesses, police presence. Document everything and let her keep incriminating herself." But Monday brought escalation that terrified Imani. Julian was called into the hospital board chair's office and informed he was being placed on administrative leave pending investigation into inappropriate relationship with a patient's family member and conflict of interest regarding hospital donations. "They're coming after me now," Julian told Imani that evening, his jaw tight with anger. "Eleanor is using her remaining board connections to punish anyone who helped you. The chair strongly suggested I distance myself from your family if I want to keep my position as chief of surgery." "Then do it," Imani said immediately. "I won't let you lose your career because of me." "Not happening," Julian said firmly. "I knew the risks when I testified against Garrett. I'm not abandoning you now because Eleanor is throwing a tantrum. Julian, this is your life's work, and you're my life," he interrupted, the words hanging in the air between them with sudden weight. "I didn't mean to say it like this, but it's true. I love you, Imani. I love your daughters. I'm not walking away to save a job." Imani stared at him, this man who'd appeared in her life during crisis and stayed through everything. "You love me?" "Completely. Have for months. Didn't say anything because the timing was terrible and you were fighting for your daughters and I didn't want to add pressure. But if Eleanor wants to destroy my career for helping you, at least let it be for something real." "I love you too," Imani said, the admission feeling both terrifying and inevitable. "But I don't want you sacrificing everything. I'm not sacrificing anything I value more than you. Let Eleanor come after me. She'll just keep incriminating herself." He was right. Tuesday morning, the hospital board received anonymous complaints about Julian's unstable girlfriend and her negative influence on hospital reputation. The complaints were so obviously coordinated and malicious that the board chair called Veronica directly to ask if Eleanor was behind them. "She's violating her bail conditions," the chair said. "I supported her family for years, but this is too far. I'm providing these complaints to the prosecutor as evidence of ongoing harassment." Wednesday afternoon, Eleanor's electronic monitoring showed she'd left her designated area and been within 2 blocks of Imani's apartment. Her lawyers claimed GPS malfunction. The prosecutor filed for bail revocation. Thursday's hearing was swift. The judge reviewed the evidence. The brick, the slashed tires, the graffiti, the anonymous complaints about Julian, the GPS violation. Eleanor's lawyers argued coincidence and GPS malfunction. "Mrs. Whitfield," the judge said, her voice cold with fury, "you were released on bail under strict conditions. Since then, Dr. Walker has experienced systematic harassment that bears your signature tactics. Your GPS shows you near her residence despite restrictions. You've targeted her professional relationships. You've made it clear you have no intention of following this court's orders." "Your Honor, there's no direct evidence my client," her lawyer began. "Your client has spent 20 years getting away with indirect evidence," the judge interrupted. "Not this time. Bail is revoked. Mrs. Whitfield will remain in custody pending trial." Eleanor's mask finally shattered completely. "You can't do this. Do you know who I am? I've funded this city, supported this court system, made careers for people like you. You're a woman who kidnapped 3 children and has spent the last week terrorizing their mother," the judge said. "Bailiffs, remove her." As Eleanor was led away, still shouting about her connections and power, she turned to Imani with pure hatred. "This isn't over. I'll get out eventually. And when I do, you'll wish you'd taken my original offer. You'll wish you'd just disappeared." But Imani wasn't afraid anymore. She'd survived everything Eleanor could throw at her, and now Eleanor was going to face real consequences for the first time in her life. The trial was scheduled for 2 months later. During that time, Imani and Julian grew closer. He lost his position as chief of surgery. The board couldn't completely ignore Eleanor's allies, but was offered a research position at another hospital with better pay and more autonomy. "Best thing that ever happened to me," he said when the offer came through. "That hospital was full of politics and donors controlling everything. This new position is pure medicine." The girls adored him more each day. Zara demanded he help with her science projects. Amara showed him every drawing. Nia started calling him Daddy Julian naturally, without prompting or pressure. "Is that okay?" Julian asked Imani the first time Nia used the title. I don't want to overstep. You've earned it, Imani said simply. You've shown up every day. You've fought for them. You've loved them without needing biology or legal documents. That makes you their father more than Garrett ever could be. Eleanor's trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecutor presented overwhelming evidence: the forged documents, the kidnapping, the bail violations, the pattern of targeting mother. Garrett testified against his mother for the second time, describing her manipulation and his own cowardice in going along with her plans. My mother raised me to view people as assets, Garrett said during testimony. Women were decorative or useful. Children were legacy markers. Love was weakness. I'm testifying against her because I finally understand that's monstrous. Those 3 little girls deserved a father, and I wasn't capable of being one because she made sure I'd never learn how. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts: kidnapping, custodial interference, forgery, conspiracy, violating bail conditions. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge showed no mercy. Mrs. Whitfield, you have spent decades using your wealth and power to destroy women you deemed unworthy of your family name. You orchestrated the kidnapping of 3 toddlers. You violated court orders repeatedly. You have shown no remorse, no understanding of the harm you've caused. I'm sentencing you to 15 years in prison with no possibility of parole for the first 5 years. 15 years. Eleanor would be 88 when released if she survived that long. She was led away in chains. And Imani finally breathed freely. The war was over. Eleanor was in prison. Garrett had moved to Seattle and given up all parental rights. Imani had sole custody, financial stability, and a man who loved her completely. They'd won. Chapter 8. 7 years passed in peaceful obscurity that felt like miracle, and then Zara found the articles. But this time, she found something else too. Girls were 14 now, finishing 8th grade. Zara had become fierce young scientist. Amara had her mother's precision combined with artistic brilliance. Nia played 3 sports and collected friends effortlessly. Imani came home from surgery to find all 3 girls at kitchen table with Julian, expressions serious. On table lay laptop displaying news article from 10 years ago. Venture capitalist abandons pregnant girlfriend for political marriage. We need to talk, Zara said, about our biological father, about why you never told us the truth. Imani's stomach dropped. What did you find? Everything. Zara turned laptop around, showing article after article. Engagement party confrontation, custody battle, Eleanor's kidnapping conviction. You told us he made bad choices. You didn't tell us he abandoned you while pregnant, married someone else. Then his mother kidnapped us when we were 3. You were too young to understand. We're not too young anymore, Amara interrupted quietly. We're 14. We deserved to know our own history. But that's not even the part that makes us angry, Nia added, her voice shaking. We don't remember being kidnapped. We don't remember any of it. You protected us from the trauma, and we're grateful. But Mom, we had a right to know we were stolen, that someone wanted us so badly they committed a crime, that you fought off a billionaire to keep us safe. Zara's voice cracked. We found the police reports, the Amber Alert, the news coverage of Eleanor being arrested on camera. There are videos, Mom, videos of us crying in that window while you stood at the gate. We were 3 years old and terrified, and we never knew. You never told us we were that brave, that you were that brave. I didn't want you to carry that fear, Imani said, tears burning her eyes. I wanted you to grow up feeling safe, not knowing you'd once been in danger. We understand that, Amara said gently, but we're not little anymore. We can handle knowing we survived something scary. What we can't handle is finding out from Google instead of from you. You're right, Imani admitted. You deserved the truth. I was protecting you, but maybe I was also protecting myself from reliving it. I'm sorry. We found something else, Zara said, pulling out her phone. Garrett's lawyer contacted us, said Garrett has been writing us letters since we were 3, letters sealed until we turned 18, explaining everything from his perspective, The lawyer asked if we wanted early access now that we're old enough to understand context. And before you say no, Nia added quickly, we need to tell you something. We're not angry at you for keeping us from Garrett. We're not secretly longing for a relationship with our biological father. Dad is our dad. She gestured at Julian. He's the one who raised us, who chose us, who earned the title. But we do want to understand, Zara continued. Not to forgive Garrett or build a relationship, just to know the complete story, to hear what he has to say for himself before we decide who he is to us. That's our right, Mom, to make informed choices about our own history. Imani looked at Julian, who gave a small nod. They're old enough, he said quietly. And they're right. This should be their choice. Fine, Imani said, the word tasting like surrender. You can read the letters, but not alone. I want to be there when you do. The letters arrived 3 days later. Inside were 3 bundles, each containing 47 letters written monthly for over 10 years. He never stopped writing, Amara said softly, staring at the stack, even though he knew we might never read them. Zara opened the first letter and read aloud, Dear Zara, by the time you read this, you'll be 18 years old and hopefully curious about the man who shares half your DNA. I want to tell you about the worst mistake I ever made. When your mother told me she was pregnant with you and your sisters, I chose my political ambitions over your existence. I blocked her calls, married someone else, and pretended you didn't exist because I was a coward who cared more about what other people thought than about doing what was right. The letter continued with brutal honesty. No excuses, no self-pity, just raw accountability for every failure. This is different than we expected, Nia said after they'd read several letters. He's not trying to win us over or make excuses. He's just telling the truth about being terrible. Keep reading, Imani said, because she knew what was coming. They found the letter dated 3 months after the kidnapping. Dear Zara, Amara, and Nia, my mother kidnapped you yesterday. By the time you read this, you'll know the full story, but I need to tell you my part in it. I knew she was planning something. She told me she had a solution to the custody problem. I didn't ask what that meant, because I didn't want to know. I chose willful ignorance over protecting you. When you were brought to her estate, I stood on those steps for 20 minutes before I finally grew a spine and returned you to your mother. 20 minutes while you cried for her. That's who I am. Someone who takes 20 minutes to do the right thing when it should be instant. I'm writing this to make sure you know your kidnapping was partially my fault. I enabled my mother's cruelty through cowardice. I'm sorry doesn't begin to cover it, but I'm sorry anyway. All 3 girls were crying now, but Zara's anger was palpable. He knew. He stood there knowing we'd been kidnapped and he waited 20 minutes? He also eventually chose to return you, Julian said carefully. Which doesn't excuse the 20 minutes, but it matters. He made the right choice, even if he made it slowly. They read more letters, each one documenting Garrett's therapy, his realization that his mother had been abusive, his choice to cut off his family completely and live modestly rather than use wealth he hadn't earned. One letter from 5 years ago made all 3 girls stop. Dear daughters, I'm writing this on your 9th birthday. I saw a photo of you in the newspaper. Zara won a science competition. I'm so proud, even though I have no right to be. I want you to know I'm not waiting for a chance to be your father. That ship sailed when I abandoned you before birth. I'm just trying to become someone who deserves to have daughters like you, even if I never get to know you. Julian Cross is your father. He earned that title through daily devotion. I'm just the biological contributor who finally figured out what mattered too late. That's my legacy, and I've accepted it. He's given up, Amara said quietly. He's not writing these letters hoping we'll reach out. He's writing them to be better, regardless of whether we ever know. What do you want to do? Imani asked. I want to meet him, Zara said. Once. Not as a father, but as the person who shares our DNA and apparently spent 10 years becoming someone decent. I want to see if the letters are real. Me too, Amara and Naya said together. Before you decide, Imani said carefully, you need to understand something. Meeting him might be disappointing. He might not be the person these letters suggest, or he might be exactly that person, and then you'll grieve for what you could have had if he'd been that person from the start. Either way, it'll hurt. We know, Zara said, but we're 14, not 3. We can handle complicated feelings. What we can't handle is spending the rest of our lives wondering. Julian arranged the meeting, video call first, to test the waters. If that went well, they'd consider an in-person meeting with strict boundaries. The video call happened on a Saturday morning. Garrett appeared on screen looking older, grayer, living in a modest apartment that could have been anywhere. "Hi," he said awkwardly. "I'm Garrett." "You already know that. Thank you for agreeing to this." "We read your letters," Zara said bluntly. "All 47 of them. You were pretty honest about being a coward." "We read your letters," Zara said bluntly. "All 47 of them. You were pretty honest about being a coward." "I was," Garrett agreed. "I was selfish, weak, more concerned with image than humanity. Your mother and Julian are your real parents. I'm just the biological contributor who failed spectacularly at being human for many years." "Are you still in therapy?" Amara asked. "Yes, weekly for the past 11 years. I probably need it for life." "Good," Zara said, "because you have a lot to work on." They talked for an hour, cautious questions, honest answers, no pretense of instant connection. Garrett asked about their lives, their interests, their dreams. He listened without trying to insert himself into their futures. When the hour ended, Zara asked the question Imani had been dreading. "Do you want a relationship with us?" Garrett was silent for a long moment. "I want whatever you want. If you want to email occasionally, I'd be honored. If you want to never speak to me again after today, I understand. This is entirely your choice. I have no expectations and no demands." "We'll think about it," Zara said. Over the next several months, the girls exchanged occasional emails with Garrett. Nothing frequent, nothing deep. Just updates about their lives, questions about his therapy journey, discussions about biology and genetics that interested Zara scientifically. "Is this okay?" Imani asked Julian one night after Zara mentioned emailing Garrett about a science project. "They're building something on their terms," Julian said. "Very boundaried, very controlled. They know I'm their dad. Garrett is just a person in their history. That seems healthy." When Eleanor died in prison 2 years later, the girls felt nothing. She was a name attached to a crime they didn't remember, a villain in a story they'd survived. But when Garrett sent a card acknowledging Eleanor's death with the simple message, "I'm sorry for everything she put your family through," Amara cried. "Why am I crying?" she asked Imani, confused by her own emotions. "I don't even know him." "Because he's a person who was terrible and is trying to be better," Imani said, "and that's sad and complicated and worth crying about." By the time the girls turned 18, they'd built something with Garrett that defied easy categorization. Not father-daughter relationships, but connections. He was the biological contributor who'd become a pen pal, someone they knew through words more than presence. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was more than anyone expected. And maybe learning that people could be terrible and still grow was the most valuable lesson their complicated family history could teach them. Chapter 9. The letter from Garrett arrived on Zara's 18th birthday, and it contained an offer that would force everyone to confront what they'd carefully avoided for 4 years. "He wants to meet in person," Zara said, reading from the letter at her birthday dinner. "Says he has something important to discuss. He's asking all 3 of us to meet him in Seattle. He'll fund the trip if needed, but only if Mom and Dad approve and come with us." "Absolutely not," Imani said immediately. "He's been respectful for 4 years because email is safe. In person, he could manipulate—" "Mom," Zara interrupted gently. "We're 18 now, legally adults. We can make this choice ourselves. We're asking for your blessing, not your permission." Imani looked at Julian helplessly. "What does your gut tell you?" Julian asked the girls. "That we're curious," Zara admitted. "We've been emailing someone for 4 years who exists only as text. Meeting him in person, seeing if he's the same person without the distance, that feels important." I want to go too, Nia added. He's been honest in emails. If he's different in person, we'll know. But we'll never know if we don't try. And if he tries to build a real relationship? Imani asked. If this is the first step in him inserting himself into your lives permanently? Then we'll set boundaries, Amara said firmly. Mom, we love you. We love Dad. Nothing Garrett says or does will change that you're our parents. But he's also part of our history, and we're old enough to decide what role, if any, he plays going forward. Trust us. The trip was planned for the following month. Imani and Julian accompanied despite Garrett's offer to pay. They funded it themselves, maintaining independence. Seattle was cold when they arrived. Garrett suggested meeting at a small restaurant near the waterfront, neutral territory. He arrived exactly on time, looking nervous. 4 years of email correspondence hadn't prepared any of them for seeing him in person. Older, grayer, lines around his eyes, suggesting years of difficult work. Thank you for coming, he said carefully. I know this is uncomfortable. Why did you ask us here? Zara said directly. Your letter said it was important. What's important enough to ask us to fly across the country? Garrett pulled out a folder and set it between them. I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. I have maybe 6 months. The words landed like physical blows. Imani's first instinct was complicated. Not satisfaction, not quite sympathy, something in between. I'm sorry, Amara said, her natural empathy surfacing. That must be terrifying. It is, but it's also clarifying, Garrett said. I've spent 14 years trying to become someone who deserved to know you. Now I'm running out of time to find out if I succeeded. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not trying to manipulate you into some deathbed reconciliation. I just wanted you to have the choice. If you decide you don't want contact beyond this conversation, I'll respect that. If you want to spend some of my remaining months getting to know me, not as a father, but as the biological contributor who finally got his act together, I'd be honored. Entirely your choice. That feels manipulative, though, Zara pointed out, using your cancer to create pressure. You're right, I apologize. I don't know how to do this without some manipulation because it's my default pattern. I'm trying to be better, but I'm probably still failing. The brutal honesty was disarming. What do you actually want from us? Nia asked. Honestly, I want a few months of real relationship before I die. I want to know you as the young women you've become, not just as names on an email screen. I want to tell you about my life too, and I want to die knowing I became someone who deserved daughters like you, even though I never earned the title of father. Julian is our father, Zara said firmly. That's not changing. I know. He did everything I should have done. He earned it. I'm not competing. I'm just asking if there's space for me to be something, not a father, but maybe a person in your history who finally figured things out. We need to think about it, Zara said, looking at her sisters. Take all the time you need, Garrett said. I'm dying, but slowly enough you don't have to decide today. The dark humor surprised a small laugh from Nia. Back at the hotel, they processed everything. What are you thinking? Julian asked them carefully. I'm thinking he's being honest, Zara said, and that's uncomfortable because it's easier to hate him when he's purely villainous. But he's not. He's just someone who was terrible and worked really hard to be less terrible. I'm thinking I feel sorry for him, Amara admitted, which makes me feel guilty. But he's dying alone because he destroyed all his real relationships. That's sad. I'm thinking I want to know him, Nia said quietly. Not as a father, but as the person who shares my DNA and is trying to make amends before he dies. We'll regret it if we don't try. What about the trauma? Imani asked gently. You were kidnapped because of him. His cowardice enabled Eleanor. Doesn't that matter? It matters, Zara said. But we don't remember it. We know it intellectually, but it's not our trauma. It's yours, Mom. You're the one who stood at that gate watching us cry. You're the one who lived through the fear. We're just reading about it in articles and letters. That's different. You still have a right to be angry, Imani insisted. We know, Amara said, and maybe we will be someday. But right now, we're mostly curious. And if we spend the rest of our lives wondering what he was really like, that curiosity will turn into resentment. Not at him, at ourselves for not being brave enough to find out. They decided together. The girls would spend the next day with Garrett alone, getting to know him without Imani's protective presence influencing the dynamic. "Are you sure?" Imani asked one more time. "We're sure," all three said together. The next day was agony for Imani. She and Julian walked Seattle while their daughters had lunch with Garrett, her phone clutched in her hand waiting for a crisis that never came. When the girls returned that evening, they were thoughtful rather than traumatized. "He's sad," Nia reported. "Genuinely sad about missing our childhoods. Not performing. Actually sad. He asked good questions about our lives," Zara added. "He listened instead of trying to make it about himself. It was weird, but not terrible." "He cried when I showed him my art portfolio," Amara said quietly. "Said he wished he'd been there to see us develop our talents. Then he apologized for making it about him when it should be about us." "So, what do you want to do?" Julian asked. "We want to visit monthly for the next 6 months while he's still healthy enough," Zara said. "See who he is when we spend more time together. If he's genuinely changed, we'll have those months to know him. If he hasn't, we'll figure that out too." Over the next 6 months, the girls visited Garrett regularly. Each visit brought reports that were cautiously positive. He was consistent, honest about his flaws, never pushed for more than they offered. He attended Zara's graduation via video call when he was too sick to travel. He framed Amara's artwork in his small apartment. He watched recordings of Nia's soccer games. He was dying slowly, and the girls were getting to know him carefully. Garrett died on a Tuesday in October, 6 months after the Seattle meeting. His final letters to each girl were brief and honest. "Thank you for giving me 6 months to know you. It was more than I deserved and more than I'd hoped for. I'm dying having failed at being your father, but having succeeded at becoming someone you didn't hate. That's enough. Julian is your father. He earned it. I'm just grateful you let me be something to you in the end." The girls cried at his funeral, not devastated, but genuine grief, for a complicated person they'd known briefly, but meaningfully. "Are you glad you got to know him?" Imani asked afterward. "Yes," all three said together, "even knowing it would hurt when he died." "Especially because of that," Amara said. "The hurt means it was real. He mattered to us, and we mattered to him. That's worth the grief." Imani couldn't argue with that logic, even though part of her still wished Garrett had remained the villain she'd fought against, instead of becoming complicated and human. But watching her daughters process his death with maturity and emotional intelligence, she realized they'd needed this. They'd needed agency over their own relationship with their biological father, rather than having that choice made for them, and maybe that was the final lesson in all of this, that love meant letting go, even when it terrified you, trusting that you'd raised them strong enough to handle complicated truths and make their own choices. They were extraordinary. And Imani had done that. Chapter 10. 5 years after Garrett's death, Imani watched Zara walk down the aisle at her wedding, and she finally understood they'd won everything that mattered. Zara was 23 now, marrying her research partner after finishing her neuroscience PhD. Amara had an art gallery in New York. Nia played professional soccer. The wedding was small, held in the same park where Imani used to take them as toddlers. Julian officiated, their father in every way that mattered. "When I look at these 3 women," Julian said during the ceremony, "I see proof that love isn't about biology. It's about showing up consistently, choosing family every day. Imani fought off a billionaire family to protect them. I got to raise them. They became who they are because they were loved fiercely." During the reception, Zara pulled Imani aside. "Garrett would have been proud. I know that's weird to say. It's not weird. He got to know you before he died. That mattered to him. Does it still bother you that we had a relationship with him? Sometimes. Part of me wanted him to stay the villain, but you 3 needed him to be more complicated. You needed agency over your own relationship with him. I'm glad you got that." "You're an amazing mother." You protected us when we needed it, then let us make choices when we were old enough. That's the hardest part. Imani found Julian later. Our daughter just told me you think I'm the strongest person you've ever met. You are. You survived abandonment, fought off billionaires, raised 3 extraordinary humans, then had the grace to let them decide about their biological father even though it terrified you. I couldn't have done it without you. You could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to. They danced while their daughters laughed, and Imani finally believed the story was over. Not perfectly, not without scars, but over. Garrett had written his letters and died. Eleanor had gone to prison and died bitter. Imani had protected her daughters and won. And these 3 women, Zara with her brilliant mind, Amara with her gentle heart, Nia with her fierce spirit, had become exactly who they were supposed to be, not because of genetics or money or anything the Whitfields could have provided, but because one woman chose to fight when nobody else would, because one man chose to love without needing biology. Because family wasn't blood, it was showing up when things got hard. I'm proud of us, Imani said. We did extraordinary, Julian agreed. And somewhere in a Seattle cemetery, Garrett's headstone bore a simple inscription he'd chosen himself. He tried to be better. It wasn't enough, but he tried. The girls visited his grave once a year, not out of obligation, but because he'd been part of their story, not the villain, not the hero, just a complicated person who'd failed and learned and died, knowing he'd become someone worthy of their brief attention. That was enough. They were enough. They'd always been enough.